I'm not at home by myself, and normally me and Susan, my lovely Shiksa wife, who has, Shiksa is a non-Jewish wife, right? So it's like, are you going out with that Shiksa? What's the matter with you? Susan, we've been married for many years, and she almost knows all the words to the Hanukkah's material. So thank you, Susan, for being a good sport. Of course, Susan, being the good shiksa she is, thought this was something you would not want to impose on anybody else. I did not want me to do this, but being the Jewish person I am, I think it's important. So, sure. Thank you. All right, so hopefully this will not burn the building down. These are trick candles, right? This is what Ernie would have done. He would have had trick candles. This would have kept going, and then it would keep going out over and over again. Okay, here we go.
All right, here we go.
This will work.
Louder, please.
There we go. We got them all. Excellent. Now, for those of you who are wondering, what the hell is this Hanukkah thing? Which most people don't know very much about. So Hanukkah was actually a very minor holiday until we were in a place where, Jews were in a place where all of these Goyim were doing this Christmas thing, and all these kids wanted to have presents and be part of that. And so why can't we have a Hanukkah bush here, or a Christmas tree? So this minor holiday of Hanukkah got elevated to something that all of us have to do. And basically it was about it was a religious, it was a war that happened, and Judah Maccabee was this Jewish warrior. He defeated these evil people, and there's discussion of whether they were who they were and what they were at. Some people say it's about fundamentalism. There are all kinds of mythology about what this is about. But the story and the reason that we have 8 days of Hanukkah is that after this war, there was this thing called the Ner Tamid, which is this oil that's supposed to be lit all the time in a synagogue, and there was not enough after this battle. There's just a tiny little bit, and they sent this guy to the next town, and it was going to take forever for him to get back, and miraculously, it lasted for 8 days until the guy was come back with the oil, and that is why we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 days, not just so that you can get 8 days of presents, which is much better than the goys would only get 1 day of Hanukkah. So that is the story of Hanukkah. Thank you very much. For those of you who don't know very much about Ernie Kovacs, we here at the Dallas Video Festival are big fans of his. To me, Ernie Kovacs was the first artist to work in the medium of television. He defined what comedy could be, and the very first program we ever did in 1987 was Edie Adams showing work of Ernie Kovacs at the Dallas Video Festival. So when we decided to have an award, to have this in his honor just seemed really important. And over the last several years, we have had the help and assistance of Josh Mills. Josh is Edie Adams' son. Edie came for many years while she was living and in good health. And, of course, meeting Edie and having her with me was one of the great joys of running a festival. So Josh has been kind of the spirit of Kovacs. So I thought I'd have Josh say a few words.
Oh, well, they were married. Edie and Ernie were married. It's exciting to have everybody here. We are super excited to have Amy here. But Ernie,
Your fault.
Yeah. But it's an annual thing, and I hope it continues in Dallas for a long time.
So I heard that there is a DVD collection.
Why, yes, Bart, there is a DVD collection. Actually, in November, we put out a 9-disc set. It's basically the best of the best of. So it's out now, and it's really, Ernie's career on television from like 52 to 62. And it's everything from his daily shows, his late night shows, his ABC specials. So you kind of get a good smattering of things, and his famous one, which was a color Eugene show, which he did as a silent show. It had sound, it had no words. That's on there too, so it's a pretty good set.
Yes, if you've never seen Eugene, it is definitely an important moment in television history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, he basically, I guess the story was that Jerry Lewis at the time was super popular, and they offered him a 90-minute show, and Jerry Lewis said, I don't want to do 90 minutes, I only want to do 60. And no one wanted to do the back end 30 minutes after Jerry Lewis. And Ernie said, I'll take it, but you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And they said, fine. And Ernie came up with this ridiculous character, Eugene. It's a silent show. You have to see it. It's really great. And shortly thereafter, Ernie was the one on the cover of Life magazine and not Jerry Lewis, because everybody realized how great he was.
Wow.
Excellent, excellent. So before we move on, do you want to talk about when we that first time when, in 1987, when I was doing this festival, one of the most stressful calls I've ever made in my life was trying to get Edie Adams to come here and present the work, and I'd never done this before. So I found the agent, this guy Henry Bollinger, and he was really gracious and made this thing happen, and it was a really wonderful relationship. I knew Henry for many years, and Henry has passed away. And Josh, can you say a few words about Henry?
Yeah, I mean, Henry, his name you wouldn't know, but very, very well liked, very well received in Hollywood for years. He'd probably been working for the last 50 years or so. And he was just a great guy. He worked with Ernie on Take a Good Look. Supposedly the story went that there was a potential for a publicist to work on the show, and Ernie hated anybody, managers, agents, he didn't like anyone. So Henry was sort of talked into going, and he was there for 2 weeks. Ernie never spoke to him. They kept saying, go back, go back, go back. And one day, while Henry's sitting in the Ernie's dressing room, Ernie has to go on set, and he hands Henry the cards and goes, you play my hand. And Henry didn't know what he was doing. He just grabbed the cards, sat down with a bunch of people. Ernie went and did the show and came back, and lo and behold, Henry had won some money. He said,
something that Ernie did not often do.
No, Ernie was a compulsive, insane gambler, but a terrible gambler. So would make ridiculous bets, was never happened until he lost. Anyway, Henry won, and Ernie said, you're the publicist everybody's been telling me about, you're hired. And so he had a relationship with Ernie, for about, until the end of his life. And then he worked with my mom for, I think, almost 50 years. Like, it was crazy how long he worked with my mom. So, great guy.
So anyway, before we move on, I want to show a clip from Ernie Kovacs. One of the joys for me, and by the way, it's pronounced Kovacs, if anybody listened to Think this week. And one of the joys I get to do is to go through the collection and find something that connects Kovacs to our honoree this year. So I think you'll enjoy this clip. So let's roll. All right. So what do you think of that?
The great irony is that my mom was one of the world's worst cooks ever. And
So that was indeed Edie
yeah, that
giving
was
the
my mom,
direction.
yeah. The other thing is that, it reminds me, Ernie used to give my mom charms, and used to give her all sorts of ridiculous charms for a charm bracelet. And one of them Ernie gave her was a kitchen sink, so she would actually know what it looked like. It's funny.
So with that, you get a sense of the bridge between Ernie Kovacs and Amy Sedaris.
Absolutely.
So let us bring over Amy. And let me introduce to you the winner of the Ernie Kovacs Award, Amy Sedaris. So, let me just tell you a little bit about this award before I hand it to her. So this
About
award...
Hanukkah? More about Hanukkah?
Do you want to know more about Hanukkah?
No.
I could go on.
No.
I'm a teacher, I can go on. So, Greg Metz, Greg, if you're there, stand up. Greg has designed and created the original award for this. And since it's the first time that a woman, God, I can't believe we've done this for so long, the first time we have a woman getting the Kovacs Award, he decided to put a wig on the Ernie Kovacs Award.
Oh, that is the ugliest. That is fantastic. Let's see without the wig. Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
So this is like by itself, and then because when you were on Think the other day, you talked about how much you like to work with wigs. Now we have a wig on top of it.
Well, I wish I should wear this now.
So which character would you take on?
For this?
Yeah.
It looks like a doll that's too big, like one of those dolls that aren't fun to play with, those creepy ones that's between sizes, kind of a wig. That's what it looks like, sausage curls. This is great. Thanks for designing it, and thanks for giving it to me, the first woman to win.
Yes, it's about big and fun. So let's roll the first clip, which will give you a sense of AB's work over the years, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so to do the Q&A with me, we have Mark. Well, Mark.
Thanks, Gordon, for putting together that reel.
That was
And
awesome.
here she is, Amy.
I forgot about all the stuff that I've been busy, I guess.
See, Amy Sedaris is the kind of person that it takes two people to do a Q&A with.
Right.
I want to thank Bart for having me out here. Amy, it's a thrill to be back with you. We first met at San Diego Comic-Con of all places, which I think was your first Comic-Con experience.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here in Dallas, because you're very busy right now, and it means a lot to have you here.
You are so freaking busy. How do you keep
Isn't
up
everybody? It's the holidays. You were busy.
with... I know those candles
Almost
look
really
sad,
busy,
you know? But I mean, you do so many shows, so many different things. It's truly amazing. I mean, the breadth of all the stuff is just kind of incredible.
It's kind of the same characters over and over again. I was watching that and like, okay. Well, not much of a range.
I don't know.
Just different wigs.
BoJack is a bit different.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Yeah.
I think so. So, do you want to start with the first show, Exit 57?
Exit 57.
How did that start?
It started because I was writing a play with my brother David. We'd done 8 plays together, and I was in Chicago at Second City, and I would come to New York to do plays. And we were doing a play called Stitches. I believe Paul Dinello was in it too. And then someone from HBO downtown was in the audience and pretty much offered Paul and I a sketch show. They said, "Would you ever want to do a sketch show for television, HBO downtown?" And so it kind of just happened that way. I wasn't thinking about doing TV. You know, we were just performing. And so we said yes, and we got Colbert, to come from Chicago, and he joined us, and cast some other people, and that was our first experience with television. The sketches were really like 8-minute sketches. Looking back, it's pretty embarrassing, but we had a good time. We had a lot of freedom.
So being that was the first experience you had doing television, what was it like to have that kind of control and to sort of take what you were doing at Second City and elsewhere and bringing it to television?
Well, you just kind of were doing the same thing, but cameras were watching you. It was still all of your friends in a room making each other laugh, and then you're shooting it. And you're young. I think I don't know how old we were, maybe 30 or maybe a little older. So, you have a lot of energy and a lot of ideas, and you're not really aware of what's happening. Like even when I was watching Strangers, I forget. Like that was a lot of work. But when you're doing things with your friends and just trying to make each other laugh, it doesn't feel like work. And then you look back and be like, that was a lot of work. Like, now I'm aware it's a lot of work, because I'm older now. And, you're working, 10-hour days, and you're writing at last minute, and you look back and you're like, gosh, I could do this at 30, but it's hard to do it when you're at 57.
Speaking of Strangers with Candy, where was the origins of Jerri Blank? Where did that come from?
Well,
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Jerri Blank, the face was a character I was doing with Dave in a lot of the plays. I always looked at the character that looked like this was in every play, but I had different backgrounds and different names. And so when we came up with Strangers with Candy, I just used that same character but changed her background. I was like, oh, she'll be a drunk, alcoholic, ex-prostitute and all that. So, so the character I had down, I'd been doing for forever, and I still do versions of her. And
Had you met a few Jerri Blanks in your life?
the voice originally came from David imitating a neighbor, and then it was me imitating David doing that neighbor, and then it just became me. And then I just got the physical, I just got it down. And then for Jerri's body, I just wanted something different than my body. I wanted the kind of body where I could be standing behind a bar and I would look small, but the minute I came out from the bar, I'd have that, a butt, you know what I mean? So it's like, I just like the idea of just, different body types, I guess. So I had my own fatty suit for the first season. Now I have 5 fatty suits.
You have 5
I have 5 fatty suits. And my first fatty suit, I think I had for, 10 years. And then one day I was wearing it and I pulled out a long pin. I was like, I had this suit for 5 years and wore it on a whole season in theater, and I'm just now finding a pin this long in it. Like, it was crazy. Yeah.
Good thing you didn't sit on that the wrong
I
way.
know.
I think I first became familiar with you kind of through the talk show circuit, because you've been very, very present on late night talk shows, and I love seeing you as a guest. But I'm thinking the first one you did was Conan O'Brien in 1999,
that's right.
And then I loved seeing you on David Letterman,
Yeah.
and I feel like that really was kind of a great way to kind of introduce you to a lot of people that maybe weren't familiar with your work. I'm curious, because I know the host loved having you on, but was that something that you yourself really enjoyed, the process of going to those talk shows? And
It was, you never knew when the phone was going to ring. I was on that list. I think Broderick was on it too, Matthew Broderick, where it's like, if someone cancels, I would just get that phone call, and I was just like, oh my God. But I always had to dress up, and I was always keeping notes, like if I got called last minute. But it's kind of easier when you're last minute, because you're like, what do you want? You called me last night to be here, so you kind of had an excuse that you couldn't prepare. It's when you had time to prepare that you better be prepared, because he liked people who thought about stuff.
Yeah, some of my favorite interviews were the ones where you weren't promoting anything, you were just there to talk.
Yeah, I used to like doing talk shows when I didn't have to promote anything. Now I like doing talk shows only when I have to promote something. Just like, why would I go on that show? I have nothing to, it's funny how that changed. But Letterman was just so special because I only knew him that way. I mean, I had a couple meetings with him, alone, but we got to know each other in front of an audience. So it was kind of easier, you have energy, and from an audience it gives you a little something.
It was always very playful, very candid, and very real, and I always appreciated that. Every time I knew you were going to be on Letterman, I knew it was going to be a good show.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I think he just liked that I would just go on and on and on, and he wouldn't have to work so hard. Because I could see him lean back, and then when I got to ask him questions, well, it was fun because I wanted to know so many things about him. I was so curious, and he let me ask questions about him. He didn't do that a lot. And then after a while, he would meet me out in the wings, and that terrified me to see him beforehand, because I don't like to see the host beforehand, because I think it's genuine when you come out and you're like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. So it seems false when you have a whole meeting beforehand, but I guess that's a nice thing for a host to do.
Well, we have a clip from Exit 57.
Oh boy,
Do you want
that must be 11 minutes.
No, it's not. We only have like a minute clip. So it's just so you get a sense of it. So this is like early television from you. It's the salmon bit.
Oh yeah, salmon.
Salmon!
Yeah.
So let's run Exit 57.
That's it. Good night, everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
Right? Yeah.
So, you and Paul have worked for a long time together. How did that sort of start? And as you're telling a story, how did this salmon thing start?
I don't know how we came up with salmon. I don't remember. We just must have been tossing out ideas. But I met Colbert and Danilo at Second City, and we clicked. And we started at Second City, when you're a touring company, you do the best of Second City. You do other people's material. But we were the first company that really got to start doing our own stuff. And our first thing that we did on the touring company was a tumbling routine where I lived over a deaf girl. She was 5, and she went to go see. I'm going to mispronounce it. Circus du Soleil, whatever
Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, she went to go see that.
Kovacs.
So she was signing to me what that show was about, and it just a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, from the rest of my life, I always have to have something in a show that a deaf person can get. Even I'd go home and watch Stranger with Candy with the volume down to see if I would still find it entertaining, which like Ernie's so entertaining is because it's funny what comes out of his mouth, but he's funny not, if you have the volume turned down also. So that's kind of how that started. So I went out and got tumbling outfits and books, and so for the whole time we were at Second City, and when we did it at the Colbert Report, we tumbled forever. So that was kind of nice. So we just worked really well together, and we still work well together. But Paul's the one who turned me on to Ernie Kovacs, because Paul Danilo has, everything's kind of last minute. you know, he puts on the show, and I think maybe that comes from improv too. You're out there and you have to think really quickly, but he introduced me to Ernie Kovacs, and you know, he works just like him. So it's kind of thrilling to work with someone like that.
And with Kovacs in his early days, I mean, he started out doing like morning television in Philadelphia, and he just had hours to fill. So somebody would
Right.
like throw him some glasses
Yeah.
and like do a character, and he would do it like live television. And so most of that characters were like evolved over time just out of like improv.
In the moment, you're right.
Right.
So didn't Jonathan Winters was kind of like that a little bit too,
Yeah.
where, you know, so I grew up with people like that, and Red Skelton, where they would do all these characters, and that must be where I got it from really when I was young.
Well, and to touch upon something we saw a little minute ago, when you did that scene with Robin Williams, again, Robin Williams was incredibly influenced by coming up with it in the moment and not having to rehearse it over and over and over again.
I'm better that way. It's like writing on your
Right,
feet.
exactly. I did want to ask you, like that scene we just saw, the salmon scene, when you're rehearsing that, how do you know in that moment that this is going to play? Like, how do you determine what's going to be funny and how
Well, you don't
funny?
Especially
dream
back
that.
then, because
Yeah.
that's like your first bit in television.
Right.
Right. But you don't know because we're used to the audience giving us energy and laughing, and it's weird when you don't have a live audience. We're so much better with a live audience. Some of it at 57 there was an audience there, but on this show I'm doing now there's no audience, so you can't. You're like, oh, we were laughing really hard by the video village. It's like that means nothing to. I mean, it doesn't. I can't tell. You just think you're out there bombing every second.
I don't think you've ever had that problem.
No, but it is something that, you know, we're trained in front of an audience.
Sure.
But we don't have time to rehearse for this show, so you're rehearsing as we're shooting it. But X57, I think we rehearsed it a lot because we wrote it a lot through improv. We would just get it on his feet and act it out. And there's some Strangers with Candy scenes that I remember staying up till like 3 o'clock in the morning improvising with Paul and Steven. Like the first Tammy Little Nut scene in the cafeteria when I give Tammy Little Nut a baby to take care of. I remember improvising that, and that was the first time I worked with Maria, Tammy Little Nut. What a scene she had to do. But it was fun because I just think about the improv when I watch that scene.
And you write a lot of your own material. When you're writing for yourself, do you think that makes it a little more liberating, or is it more challenging that way because you're having to write for yourself?
It's easier because, it's easier to write for a character. Like, it's like, once you get, like, the Patty Hogg voice down or Jerri Blank voice down, then it's easier for other writers to write for that character. For me, I don't like to play myself too much because it doesn't seem very fun. Like, I like to have a wig or a mole or a hump. You know, give us anything to hide behind. I don't care. But then it feels like you're playing. But when you're yourself, you're just like, well, I don't know what to do. And so during my show at Home with Amy Sedaris, once I started playing all the other characters, I was like, oh, I get it. I'm the straight person. And I was like, okay, I think I can play the straight person where everyone's making fun of me. Like, I'm the queer one, oddball, you know? So that helped me a lot, wrap my head around it.
We should also mention that At Home with Amy Sedaris is it's a fun thing because while you were getting your start in acting, you were also doing cooking and things at home. You were cooking and you had a business and you were trying to like sell food. So it's a very sort of meta type of thing to have you do a show about doing like a home cooking, homemaking.
Well, I grew up with those
Yeah.
kinds of shows, homemaking shows.
Right.
And it looked like you were playing house.
Right.
So I thought, I want to do a show like that when I grow up. And then to do the books first was easy. When we went around to pitch the show, I could just slide the books across the table and say, this is what it looks like. You know, this is what it's going to be. So it's real information, but it's also funny because I'm taking it so seriously. But ever since those books came out, I don't really cook. I cook for myself, but I don't entertain for a lot of people anymore.
I mean, after writing the book about entertaining,
Yeah, done.
done it,
Done.
been there.
Yeah, I just put something in the oven and walk away from it. It's like, I can't believe I did all that entertaining. It's crazy.
So, in looking up, getting ready for this, I saw that when you were young, you worked at Winn-Dixie and would take over.
Yeah, first job.
So, what were the crazy things you would say that you weren't supposed to?
Yeah, no, stupid stuff you say at 25. I didn't know. People, food stamps, bounce checks. People coming in 2 minutes before you close and they're buying ice cream, 5 days in a row. I mean, just stupid stuff. But I would also give out free coupons. So my line would be like, all the way down an aisle, plus, down by the meat area, because they, I would just give away those free coupons. But I loved everything about working in a grocery store. I loved to see what people were buying. The women that would come in there just frazzled, because I have all this Thanksgiving food to cook, and it's like everything they bought was like, all you had to do was boil it. I'm like, what are you complaining about? And then you just trying to put the combinations together, like, okay, dog food, pantyhose, and Scotch tape. What is happening here?
So, Amy, what you're telling us is that when we check out, we should be thinking about what we're telling the people we're checking
Absolutely.
out.
And the same with waitressing, which is, I love waitressing. It was always good for your timing and characters, and I love making tips, allowance money. It's hard work, but I was a good waitress. And I do miss it. I tried waitressing the opening to Exit D7. I'm not in the car because I just got a job at Gourmet Garage, this grocery store in New York City, and I was like, we had to reshoot the opening. I was like, I can't. I just got a job at Gourmet Garage. I can't. I got to train tomorrow. I'm not going to come back in and shoot the opening of our show. So I did it. There's someone else in that car. And now I look at it like, how dare? I mean, if I should have, I guess. But then I got a job during Stranger with Candy at a fish restaurant, which I'm allergic to lobster, which was stupid. But then it felt like a bit. Like I felt like, people, it became a thing. Like, oh, you have a TV show, but you're still waitressing. So it made me feel weird, a little self-conscious.
Andy Kaufman did it.
Andy,
I
yes,
know, you
very
just want a
famously.
waitress. You didn't want it to be a thing. And then I realized I was making tips where, taking money from other waiters. It just wasn't fair. So then I started selling the cheese balls and cupcakes out of my apartment.
Why,
did I lazy?
why do you want to sell cheese balls out of your
Something
apartment?
to do with my hands at 3 o'clock in the morning, hand to God. I was like, I don't know where that energy came
were
from.
you doing any substances that
Just
made
marijuana.
you do that?
Just marijuana. But I mean, and then I got a cockroach problem, and then I had a mouse problem, and then I was like, it was a lot of work, and the profits weren't that great, or it'd be shady. I'd bring in like 7 cupcakes. They're like, where are the other, when you make 24? But I was like, I'll sell them here, but you can't call me at home. I don't want to take any special orders. No repeat business. I had all these rules, cash only. I bring in what I want, when I want. Like I was like, fine, And then everyone started making cupcakes, so I kind of stopped. I'll do it on request, but it takes a lot because my mixer's up high and I have to get the ladder out. But I had a cheese ball last night at someone's house, and I was like, I got to get back in the business.
But if you did it now, you'd have to do it in Brooklyn, and you charge way more.
No, they
so
they
so ahead
come.
of time.
Well, I'd sell my cheese balls for $20, and you get a sleeve of Ritz crackers. A lot of chicken was in a cheese ball. Huge, but the mice must have thought it was the moon. Oh my God, the size of the moon! But again, when I was talking to you, but the Ernie Kovacs Kitchen Symphony is one of my favorite things, and
yes.
I always wanted that to be the opening of my show. But they don't do long openings anymore, so we're lucky we got, I think what our opening is maybe 15 seconds or something like that, and some shows now don't even have them, so I never got to do it, but I love that mechanical chicken, and
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have seen Kitchen Symphony, but it's really beautiful, just a beautiful piece that he had in the show.
Some of my favorite characters of yours, and this kind of goes back to what you said a minute ago about writing for a character, but I love some of the one-off characters that you would do on various TV shows, or maybe recurring characters, like Delilah on Raising Hope is one of my favorite characters that you've ever done.
Right.
Virginia's crazy, jealous sister.
Right, that was fun.
But I would love seeing you pop up on these shows, even if it was just one episode. And it seemed like you had such a blast playing those kind of one-off
Fun being
roles.
a guest on a show, yeah.
I would imagine, because then there's
Stand
no
here,
pressure
say
of like
that.
having to continue that
Yeah.
character on. You could just do whatever you want to do that one episode, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You just move on to the next
Right.
thing.
Well, it's kind of fun. Yeah, it is a lot of fun to do. Martha Plimpton's actually did an episode this season on our show.
Oh, is that right?
She's so funny.
She's great.
But I like being a guest star. It is a lot of fun, and I'm always happy I get asked to do it.
Yeah, but those characters, because you're not writing for a specific character, you're just coming on and doing like a one-off guest star role.
Right.
Is that maybe a little more relaxed that way?
It is more
Okay.
relaxing, and they tend to pay a little bit more than your own shows. Or sometimes you have to say a word, like I can't say the word awesome, you know, without.
Wait a minute, you
like,
just did.
No, you know, there's certain words I'm just like, oh, I don't want to say the word pasta, or a lot of words I just can't pronounce, and I'm like, I cannot say that word. Can I?
William
pick a
Shatner
pop?
has that problem.
Really?
Yeah, he can't say like.
You can't sing either.
Yeah, he
Oh,
can't,
I can sing.
he can't say sabotage. He says sabotage.
Or sabotage. Yeah, I mispronounced. Oh, speaking of that, the opening on the clip that Gordon put together, 1+ ball, push that song.
Yeah.
Paul wrote that. Paul Danello wrote that song 20 minutes before I had to sing it. And I go, Paul, it sounds like it was in Japanese and someone translated it. And you're expecting me to memorize it, get these dance steps, work with this snowman. That's Ernie Kovacs. I mean, I was like, and so, you know, I had the monitors up, but then we had the fake snow coming down, so I couldn't see it. And so when you played that, I was like, oh my God, that day. They were making the collar the last minute, you know, the felt collar that went around my neck, and that was crazy. And it was on like our last day, and we didn't have any money. It was just, that was an insane time. But it's a funny song. But yeah, he wrote that 20 minutes before I had to sing it.
Totally works.
It totally works, right? And it is kind of fun last minute putting on a show, which is our strength. But it can drive everyone around you crazy. You just have to get used to working with someone like that. I bet, you know, Ernie had the same kind of situation probably. Like, I don't know what the show is. Will you go up in 5 minutes? What's it gonna be, you know? Who knows?
You do a lot of voice work too, and it's interesting what you said earlier about being able to perform something so where if a deaf person saw it, they could still enjoy it. But obviously with voice work, you don't have that benefit because you're working in a booth. You don't even really know what the end result's going to look like.
Right.
So it's all about your voice. It's all about what you can do with your voice. Now, some people say that that's the most fun kind of work because there's no cameras on you. You can just let loose and whatnot. Do you, because you are so expressive, do you find it maybe more limiting?
I do find it limiting because you're just standing there, and then when you see it on TV, you're like, oh, if I'd known there was a tree behind me, I would have said something about the tree or reacted off somebody else, because I like to work off people. And when you're by yourself, you know, I don't do stand-up or anything, so it makes it a little bit harder. But I don't improvise that much on BoJack. Once in a while, I'll throw in a word or they'll get something, you know, just the way I talk normally. They'll take something from me, but I'm heavily directed on that show. I'm like, how do you want me to say this? You know, this is what I was thinking. But it is weird just to stand there because I'm a pretty physical person.
Right.
So,
but you have a great visual of a character as well.
Right,
Yeah, so you get to work off of that.
But working with the other guy, they're such pros, like real voice over artists. They're so great. Their little tricks, you know, like if you have to breathe out, they go, you know, breathe in and then breathe out, like. And I'm like, oh, that sounds so much better than just going like that. Like, I walk around my apartment and do that all the time.
I know you probably can't talk too much about it, but you were cast in The Lion King, the new version of The Lion King that's out.
How about that?
And you're playing, yes, absolutely. And you're playing a new character, a character we haven't seen before. Can you tell us anything, or is that like super top secret Disney
I
will
don't
take
know
you
if
out?
it's top secret, but I just got an email from Favreau, and what I did the voice for this other animal, he sent me this funny email saying we changed it, so now it's this kind of animal. So I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it yet. You know, they're so secretive, those, you know, big.
Well, we're looking forward to it
But
either
that's
way.
nice, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Favreau's been very nice to me.
So we have a bunch of
Okay.
these clips that we can show. We
Okay.
can kind of rewind and talk. So I think the next one up is from Strangers in Kenya, the TV show. So why don't we run that and we can talk a little bit about what's in this clip.
Okay.
So
Roll it!
let's roll it. And
I've always had a theory that Steven was holding his hand over his mouth to keep from laughing in that scene.
Maybe.
Yeah,
It was
or just in
really,
case he broke, you know.
It was really hot
Yeah.
when we shot that movie. We didn't have any air conditioning, and I had the wig and the turtleneck and the fatty suit. And there were moments where it was just black. Like I couldn't remember any lines because it was like having a heat. You know, it was just too hot to do anything. So when I see that movie, I just think, oh, so hot.
So one of the things about that show that's, I just keep imagining, what was the pitch like? Like we got this character going back to high school. Like who in the hell wants to go back to high school? Like how did that work? The idea of you have this character which came from David, and you pitched this and somebody said, yes, that's a great idea.
I know. Well, it came from, I wanted to do something, I went to Paul Danello and I said, well, I want to do something with after school specials. You know, I think they're great. You know, I think they were hilarious when they were on after school because you just were like, oh my God, you know, you just made fun of them. And then Paul had the idea that I would be somebody older, and he found this documentary, the Florrie Fisher story, and where this woman who looked like Mike Dukakis, and he said, maybe you should be an older person. And then Colbert had the idea that I would learn the wrong lesson. So we each brought something to it, and then we pitched it to Kent Alderman at Comedy Central, and yeah, he said, let's do it. And then the show's very different than the pilot. So we did the pilot of it, and then, you know, it's completely different than the pilot. But it was because of Ken Alterman. He's still at Comedy Central now, but he really helped us a lot.
Sometimes when you see shows, you imagine like, somebody green-lighted that?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But yet, if they hadn't taken a chance on it, we never would have had such a great character.
That's the
Absolutely, yeah,
spirit,
exactly.
Marty. Well, we didn't know anybody was watching it until we did a book called Wigfield. And then we went on a mini book tour, and I always say there were all these ugly people that showed up, which is the best audience to have in the world. I'm bragging. I was like, where are all these ugly people coming from? And I was like, oh my God, they're strangers with candy fans. And we had no idea, because Comedy Central didn't really promote the show. It was on like 5:30 on Thursday nights or something crazy.
I found out about when I saw you on a talk show. That's how I found out about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but we were fine with that. I like off the beaten track. Like, that's why I like True TV. It's like, some people know there's a show on True TV, some people don't. I always like the feeling that I discover a show or a movie or an actor, and then I feel like I invested in that person, I made them become a star. And I like that feeling rather than put you on the side of a bus and, then they just rub it in your face. So, we didn't know we had an audience till Whitfield.
So
And it's
this,
a great audience. I love Strangers with Candy fans. They're the best.
so it begs the question: are you done with this character? Do you think you may revisit this character
I
at some
don't
point?
think so. Only because, with Colbert's schedule and Paul's, has kids now and also working at Colbert and working for me. I just don't see it happening, but it is always fun to get together and we all go into the Jerry voice and make each other laugh.
Go to college.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of sad.
That might be really.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, and not to get too serious about it, but in this current political climate, can you get away with doing a character like that?
I don't think so, do you?
See, I think it would be tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think people are so sensitive now that it
Can't
might.
say anything.
Yeah. I mean, there was a thing about a college play that just said they took the song "Kiss the Girl" out of The Little Mermaid.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, really? Like, you can't
All
even
the
do
Mermaid
that?
fans
I know.
out there.
So it'd be hard to pull off Jerri Blank today.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so the next clip we have is from Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt.
All right.
So,
It's like a woodland creature, a little fox.
all right, so let's roll this.
Mimi Canassus.
So that was voiceover work.
She's adorable, by the way.
So the next clip we have is from BoJack. So how did you get involved with that? What was the call like? And when they first described that show to you, what did they tell you?
So long ago, I don't remember, other than it was Will Arnett. We've been talking about wanting to do something together, and I think Will called me and asked me if I would do a voice for this. And I remember going to a recording studio with Will, so we read in the pilot and we did that together. And then then they send you a picture of what the character's going to look like, and it was like a pink cat. Oh, I don't know what that's going to sound like, but I've been working on that voice for a while for Princess Carolyn. There's a character kind of talking like this, and I did her in Broad City, and I did the voice in the movie Chef, and then I do her as the wine lady on my show, but it's the same voice again, but it's just a different character. But I've been working on her. It's got a little Streisand, a little bit. Streisand now. Did anyone see her on Bill Maher?
Yeah.
Yeah, that made me laugh. Commander-in-Chief of our country. I love Republicans. I love Republicans. They came to the show. I gave them a gift because it's nice. I just eat ice cream. I don't like to get lied to. I remember the first time I got lied to, it was my mother. And she picked me up from camp, and there was this man in the car. I'm like, who's this man? We didn't talk, my father was a scholar, a teacher, and I was like, I was obsessed. with Barbra Streisand. When I was little, I swear to God, I could do her, I could sing like her, I did her in all the plays. And then Louis C.K. did a show called, what was the show that he did? What's the name of it? The serious one? Horace and Pete. And he asked me to do it. He wrote a part for me, and he wrote a part for somebody else, and he asked me to do it, and I was like, gosh. So I went over to his apartment, and I read it, and he was like, no. And so I just started improvising. And then he's like, okay, what you're going to do is you're just going to improvise. So I was on Horace and Pete, and I improvised everything. Louis just trusted me and let me do it. But later he goes, it reminds me of Barbra Streisand in What's Up, Doc? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Because I was so obsessed with her, because it would just be non sequiturs. Because I can think fast, so my mind would just be going, it's like Letterman. He's just going to let you talk. You just kind of bounce around in your brain for a while. So it was really funny that Louis said that to me. And I was like, oh, of course, because I was so, obsessed with her. That's exactly where that kind of idea came from. But anyway, when she was on Bill Maher, man, I love that interview. I want to memorize it.
I want to see you do a Barbra Streisand one-woman show.
That would be incredibly awesome. Okay, so this is from BoJack. That is, the character is great, the show is great. That one episode in this season when he just does that eulogy to his mother, it's the whole show. It's one of the darkest moments in television history.
And my brother David plays Princess Carolyn's mother when she's young. I haven't seen the episode yet, but I was happy David said yes, and he goes, if I had known I had to fill out all this paperwork, I never would have said yes. I'm like, David, they pay people to do it for you.
So, one thing I've been curious about is, growing up with somebody like David, two of you are great storytellers, great performers.
I'm a horrible storyteller, but go on.
So, what was Thanksgiving dinner like with your family? What kind of great stories were they telling?
We all get along, and so we just try to make each other laugh. Really, that's what it was. We never wanted to leave the dinner table. I'm not a good storyteller, but we would all just kind of fight to get a line in here and there. You know what I mean? Like if somebody was talking, it would be like, oh, joke here, joke here, joke there. And we would all be like that. So it was always nice. And my mom was a big cook, and we just always couldn't wait to sit around the table and be with each other. Really.
So did this comedy come from your parents? The two of you together are just so incredible. It comes from someplace, right?
Well, we got the show, we wanted to be in showbiz, I guess. I was happy living in North Carolina, and David's the one who was like, oh, I'm in Chicago, and there's this place called Second City. You should come here and take some classes. It'd be perfect for you. And that's what I did, and then I was like, oh my God, this is great. So that's what big brothers do, right? They get your younger sisters or brothers to move. It's always good to move, and then you move again, and then you want to move again, or you can go back home, it doesn't matter. But David's the one, he was always doing characters when we were little, and I would emulate him and copy his characters, but he's the one, making little movies and things like that, so he really got me into it. And we were funny together. David's fun, or I'll be excited about an idea, and then I'll joke around with David so much, but then he makes it better, and then I just kill it. And I'm like, well, he'll do something with it. He has more, I'm something like, just sometimes I can be like, oh, the idea's enough. I'll come up with something, I'll think it's funny, and then I can leave it alone, where I know David's going to go work on it, and turn it into something else. So it's kind of fun to toss things back and forth like that.
So the last the clips we have here is from your show, the new show.
Oh, great.
So, you want to talk a little bit about that, about how that really sort of happened? You talked a little bit about it, but how did you pitch this, and how did they get to say okay?
It took me maybe 18 years to get this show going, because, again, it was an idea, and it was easier to think about it all the time than actually do it. So I think it was taking me so long, and then I was like, okay, I'll do a cookbook first. And then I did the cookbook, and then I was like, well, now I want to do a craft book. And then I could just talk about it forever. And all my friends were like, oh, enough already with this show. When are you going to do it? And so I'd never been to therapy in my life. I got a therapist, and I was like, why can't what is this really about? Why am I not doing this show? Just curious about it. And so I went to her, and then I just, with her help, and I I just pitched it, and I pitched it to a lot of places, and then I didn't really hear anything back. And then True TV called and just said, we heard you were pitching this show. We'd like to hear the pitch. And I thought True was too young for me, and I thought, oh, all right. I didn't think anything of it, and then they were like, we met on a Friday, and they picked it up on a Monday. It was really cool of them to do that. I know,
Wow.
and I don't think they knew what the show was. You know, they had the books, but they just wanted to be in business with me and Paul. So that says a lot about them, and they're so supportive, and they give great notes, and we have a lot of freedom. You just need more time and money, that's all.
All right, so let's run this.
Okay, roll it! That was inspired by Angela Lansbury. She did a video, and we're like, oh my God. You know, it's funny, this season's so different than the first season, because I swear in every episode, someone's trying to kill me. It's like, you know that show Atlanta, they just call their whole season like the killing season. This is our killing season. I'm like, every episode someone pulls a knife on me, or they're threatening me, and I'm like constantly saying, what's going on? What's going on? So I'm curious what people think of this second season. I don't know why it's so, it's more narrative. We did, our last episode was Michael Shannon, and I think this season most of our episodes are like that episode, so it's more narrative and not so, I don't craft that much or cook that much, there's more story to it. So I'm
Not
curious.
as sexy as that.
Oh, no, there's
Yeah.
some sexy stuff. There's no sexy stuff.
So, one more question, and then we're gonna open it up for people to ask questions. So, most actresses want to look as incredibly beautiful as possible, and you're the only one I know that has how many fat suits?
Bye.
So, why did you go that direction, which is so counter than most women who want to look as beautiful as they can?
Because it's more fun, like I said. I'll tell you, the longest I've been in a makeup chair is for Sex and the City. I was in the makeup chair for hours, how long it took me to look pretty. I don't know, like I said, it's more fun. You feel like you're dressing up. It just feels more, comical. It's just, I want to look ugly. I just love it. Because then you take it all off and then people are like, you're so pretty. But you wouldn't hear that and then see you look so ugly. So in a way, it kind of works. My whole life, I just have always been drawn to that kind of stuff. The missing tooth, the cross eye, the, little, coconut head hair. And it's just a lot, it's just fun.
So, questions. Does anybody have any questions?
There's one right there.
Aries.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Could you talk a little bit about your comedic chemistry with Stephen Colbert and maybe how that's evolved over the years?
Stephen Colbert. Stephen's funny. He has a very high reference level. I mean, he's really smart and he doesn't forget anything. So it's fun. It's just nice to be around Stephen now because we just have a past. And, he's so big and famous, and I think he really still likes hanging out with me and Paul or people that, he's with at Second City. But, when I'm around Stephen and Paul, we just laugh and talk about the good times. I've only done a show once, I think. And it's weird because when you know somebody, the host so well, it's kind of harder. So when I'm on a show, it just feels like a brother, so it's kind of awkward. But I'll do a show again before this second season airs.
Yes. Yes.
Besides after-school specials, were there any other television shows in the 60s or 70s that were influential on you?
Oh yeah, like the Galloping Gourmet, the Frugal Gourmet, Red Skeleton Show, Dinah Shore. We were talking about not Captain Crunch, Captain Kangaroo. What's his name? We were just talking about him. What's his name? They just did a documentary about him.
Oh, you're talking about
Mr.
Mr.
Rogers.
Yeah. Wonderful documentary.
Yeah, really good. So I actually, it was so funny for that show, I made a list of all these, at home, because people would always ask me that question. I was like, I'm going to make a list of what really inspired me here. But it was my homemaking show in North Carolina, At Home with Peggy Mann, that inspired this whole thing. It was, she'd sit in a chair and the wire would be from her to the camera guy. And it was really boring. And she'd have bad local guests on, and it was riveting to me. And I remember saying, oh, I'm going to do that show. And I contacted her son. And it's like all the tapes, they taped over all those old shows on WRAL, so there was one, tape that he had, and now it's on YouTube and you can see it, but I couldn't, her voice is like, today, I can't really do her voice, and I'm surprised I can't do her voice, but it's a good, Raleigh, North Carolina voice. And in this season I do Patty Hogg, who's a Southern woman. And she's just somebody I made up. But then I do another Southern character this season, and she doesn't, it's not a really good Southern accent, it's bad on purpose. And shots from the past, she does like this, Cindy snaps. But it didn't really work until we put a bunch of sound effects over it. But anyway, anything local always inspired me. But Ernie Kovacs and Red Skelton, and as far as the 60s go, but it was more like 70s for me, I think. That Mary Hartman was a big one, especially the colors of the show was really, because they would do a wax commercial in the middle of their episode, which was, really funny.
So, and you mentioned Mr. Rogers, also Sesame Street was very important, and you actually did a Sesame Street?
I got to do Sesame Street.
What was that like?
It was really fun, I got to work with I got to see how they work them up, it was really, that's a lot of hard work they do, it's crazy. Oh, it's fun because I've got kids and, I'll do anything, it's fun to watch stuff that I'm in that they can see, like Elf and things like Sesame Street.
I think Elf is playing around at different Alamos.
Yeah, they're doing a special Christmas show.
It's the 15th anniversary.
Yes. Other questions? I can't see you, so just like...
There's one right there.
Okay, yes.
I just want to thank you, Amy. When you came out with your cookbook, your entertaining book, I just treasure that because I'm born in '54. And I look back at all of the cookbooks and entertaining books and cocktail books that we got from our parents. And, that's exactly it. I remember my mom cooking and, all of her fancy things that she did in the 50s and 60s, and they would have their cocktail parties and their bridge parties. And they'd make all of these things just like in your book.
Yeah, very realistic.
And it was a big deal. I mean, that was a woman's life. And I just treasure that.
That was a fun book to work on, and that's exactly all that inspired me. And I just wanted to look real. Because cookbooks now, I'm like, really? It's never going to look like that, ever. Even in craft books. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make that mouse with that pipe cleaner. And I'm like, that's a lie. There's no way. You photoshopped that. But I did those books in my apartment, and, they cost me a lot of money out of my own pocket to do them, but that's just kind of what you have to do. But again, with the deaf thing, I made those books thinking it'd be good for people who can't read, illiterate people, because I took that in consideration because I'm like, if you can just, that's how I was with cookbooks, it's like you just look at the image and, it'll trigger an idea, and I just wanted it to be for people who could do that, just be inspired by all the artwork in that book. Thank you.
Cool. Another question?
Question way up at the top.
Way at the top?
Hey, whatever became of Florrie Fisher, do you know?
I don't know. Murdered. I have no idea.
Have you seen Martha Stewart since you taught her how to make a grilled cheese in prison?
Yes, I've seen Martha Stewart. I did his show, and I said, "Oh my God, it's so nice to meet you, Martha." And she's like, "Actually, we went before." And I was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh, all right, Conan O'Brien." I forgot that's where I met her when I handed her that bong, and then I was teaching her how to make. Because I said, "What's Martha doing on your show?" He goes, "She's going to teach you how to iron a shirt." I go, "Great, I'll teach her how to make." A grilled cheese sandwich using an iron, and then sure enough, prison. There you go. And then she picked out of my cooked. I said I'll make whatever she wants to make out of my cookbook, and she picked the Lady Baltimore cake, which was fake in my book. I made it out of foam because it's so hard to make, and I was like, "Isn't that?" And then she corrected the recipe and emailed it back to me. Chefs did, but it was always fun to do that show. But I look at it, I'm like, that's a 45-minute show, and here we are trying to make 24 minutes. And I watch her show, I'm like, wow, they're really stretching that up there, talking about pastry dough and how to make a wreath out of dried up leaves. I'm like, oh man, you are really stretching it. Like,
They gotta kill an hour.
They have to kill an hour.
Question over here.
When it comes to characters like the ones on At Home and of course Jerri Blank, where the makeup and hair I feel like are such important pieces of the character, I wonder how much collaboration there is between you and the artist on the vision of the character.
I have a lot to do with that. I mean, it's like with Jerri Blank, I told Vicki Farrell, the costume, I said she just owns a snake. That's what I wanted. I said, just go with that. And then for hair, I said I wanted to look like a professional golfer's hair, you know. Just go with that. So I let them do their thing. And on this show, it's the same. Like Patty Hogg, I wasn't sure. At one point he had her blonde, and I was like, I think she's brunette, you know, dyed brunette. And so we went a lot back and forth. And then with Nutmeg, who I also put in a lot of plays and changed her name, but I knew I wanted a pixie. And it was easy to make her a tomboy, but I wanted to make her pretty. Yeah, a girly girl. And in my head, Nutmeg's 36 years old. But I know people think that she's 7 and autistic. But I'm like, and she's Patty's granddaughter. And I always thought Juliette Lewis was going to be Nutmeg's mother. But Juliette Lewis is on our season this year, so I'm thinking that Kate McKinnon from SNL would be Nutmeg's mother if we ever had her mom on the show. Yeah.
Hi. One of my favorite stories about you that I read in one of your brother's books, and I'm wondering if you could talk about it or refute it or whatever, and it's the kind of thing that maybe you couldn't do anymore today, but I guess you were picked to be in some sort of photo shoot, an essay in some publication, so you had them make you up like you'd been beaten up very badly, and then you were trolling people in the supermarket like that after.
Yeah, that was me. I wouldn't do that now. Well, I didn't know it was called 100 Most Beautiful People. I missed that. So I was like, when I did photo shoots back there, I'd show them up with my prop bag. I'd be like, this is a backdrop. I brought wigs, sequin outfit. You know, I just came prepared because I wasn't used to working with photographers that had a vision. Like, this is what you're going to do. So yeah, I paid like $300, and it was a good beat-up job, and I had a waitress that night. So I thought, well, I'm not going to wash this off. It cost me so much money, so I just waitressed that way. Only one table asked me how I was, and I said I'm in love, and she's great. And then you couldn't help it. I walked home, and I was like, staring at you. It was a good job. But it was a good picture. And I had an axe. I had my paper mache axe, which is on the show. Yeah. I don't throw anything out.
So when was the first time you put on a wig for a show?
I got my first fall in 3rd grade. I still have it. It's got maggot casings in it, but I still have it. And then that was my first, but I would go to J.C. Penney's and I would steal hair off mannequins. And they would have glue in the inside of it, and I only stole 2. And then every Christmas, after a while, I would start to get wigs for presents. And I still buy wigs. Like for when I did Simple Times, the book, I couldn't afford. I was like, well, I don't want to have a hair person here every day, so I would just buy already styled wigs and stuff. So I just really like them because you just put one on your head and you can be anybody. It's fun.
We have a representative from JCPenney here.
We have another question out there?
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay, yes.
You remind me a lot of Tracy Ullman and a lot of things she does. Who are your heroes?
Well, I love her, for sure. Gilda Radner, I really liked. I liked Jonathan Winters that we were talking about, of course, Ernie, you know. Ernie I remember watching when I was little, but I didn't know it was him until I met Paul Dinello. I didn't know what it was I was watching, you know what I mean? And who else was growing up that I could think of? Oh, SCTV, the women on SCTV, really, I was a big fan. They inspired me a lot. Like, I just met Tracy Ullman. She has a really nice back. I know. I was like, oh, why do we see if she'll do an episode of our show?
The only like 2 people.
I know.
But you can do all the characters.
Yeah. I'll tell you. Why don't characters get paid? You know, why don't all my characters get a paycheck on this show? I'm like, busting my bum, like, what was I thinking? It's a lot.
Gentleman in the black shirt right here. I'm very sorry, guys. It's just really hard to see with the light, but right there.
It's easier to see the people up there.
Go ahead and stand up. The one that stand up and wave to me.
Oh, Greg was doing it for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just curious, and if you could talk about Second City, because it seems like so many women that I really enjoy who were funny came out of Second City, and we don't see, I mean, I don't know, there may be other collectives that are also around that are turning them out, you're just not seeing them, but it seems like those places, both in Canada and in America, produce such really wonderful women comics.
They do. And it was so interesting at Second City because there was always 4 guys and 2 girls. And then I worked with the director, Mick Napier, who made it 3 girls and, 4 guys. And but, being there, Jackie Hoffman, I don't know if you know who Jackie Hoffman is, she's really, really funny. That was the first girl I worked with at Second City that really made me laugh. Jackie's really, really, really funny, and we put her in. We put her in all the plays, and she did the season and everything. But it was always fun to work with another girl. But I never liked working with girls who wanted to do a scene on marriage or boyfriends, and I was always just kind of one of the guys. And I didn't want to do scenes that just involved that kind of thing. I just didn't think that was that just wasn't me. So it was always fun to work with another girl who was kind of the same way. It's just like, let's just be in a rowboat. Why does it have to be about, an engagement ring? I don't know.
Cool.
Which is nice. I look at the first woman who got the Ernie Kovacs Award.
Yeah, exactly. Did we miss anybody? It's really hard to see. Anybody on the top?
We don't want to miss any questions.
I don't see any hands waving unless...
Yes, I got one
you
over
got
there.
one? Okay, right there.
Oh, you guys are exciting.
One of my favorite skits from Exit 57 was sort of a parody of a theater almost, about the honey pie, Can't Make My Honey Pie.
Oh yeah, honey pie.
It's a great, brilliant parody of almost theater acting. And I just wondered if you had any particular memories or thoughts about
I don't remember much about Exit 57, about who wrote what or how a lot of the stuff that we came up with, just because everything was just happening for the first time, and it was so long ago. When I talked to Paul and Stephen, we just always laugh about how long the sketches were. But it's a lot of people like Honey Pie and the salmon one, and Teddy Bear Picnic. I think my brother might have written that, and then there's the smoking commercial that we did, or something to do with cigarettes, or I played a paralyzed locksmith, which was an idea, and that was a Jerri Blank character. I climbed up 9 flights to get up there. That's a medical tumbler. And I remember the producer saying we have to put a laugh track underneath it because people might think, it was a weird time. We're like, so there's a fake laugh track on that scene for some strange reason.
Anybody else? I know we got one up here, but I'm trying to get to people that we haven't got to yet. Anybody up top?
Up here, up here.
Okay,
just go.
We'll take your
All
word
right,
for
sweet.
it.
What was it like working with the girls on Broad City?
Oh, I love them.
They're wonderful. I'm obsessed with them. I'm obsessed with you, and I'm just so excited to be in the same room with you.
Check. I love those girls so much. There's something about 31, 32-year-old kids that are coming up that are really fun to work with, like Cola Skolin, who plays Chassie on the show, or John Early, Abby and Alana. I don't know, because they still know how to write a letter, maybe, or they're still, they're kind of at that age where they still know a little bit of our world, and then there's a new world, but they're so positive, and they have a lot of energy, and think about what inspired them. They're big Strangers fans, they were like very inspired by what was happening when we were on TV early on. But they're just so nice and just funny and just really pleasant women. I really like them a lot. But I like 31 and 32-year-old people. I don't know how old you are, but if you're not in that age, back off.
It seems to me like there's a lot of women in comedy that are coming up now. But I think in a lot of ways, when you did Strangers and Candy, I think that did influence a lot of people.
That's what they say. That's what I'm saying. Like John Early is Jellyneck.
You sort of started that movement.
When Paul writes for John Early, he writes as Jellyneck, and he's like, oh my God, do you guys know who John Early is?
Yes.
Oh my God. God, he's funny. And Cole Escola, he can do, when I saw Cole Escola for the first time, he was doing an orange juice commercial on YouTube as a woman. And it didn't matter. I was just like, oh, that's my neighbor on the show. It wasn't about it being a guy playing a woman. I was like, it just has to be that person. And then if Cole couldn't do it, then I would have hired a woman to do it. But Cole is very versatile. He can do anything, any character, and he helped us write this season. And then I worked with him on Difficult People. And then he wrote this season. It was fun to write with him.
One more question from somebody who had a question up there? Anyone?
I don't see any hands waving.
Oh my gosh, we're out of questions.
Nobody in the top wants to ask a question.
Over there. These
Well, we've already got you. I just want to get someone that we haven't got to yet. Is anybody that hasn't asked a question that wants to ask a question? Okay, then we'll go to him. Go ahead.
Okay, then you.
I gave you a chance.
Is it more exhilarating or disconcerting to be talking to us with this 30-foot headshot?
I just look at it and think of all the touch-ups. I don't look like that, do I?
You look better than that.
Oh, no.
That's awesome.
It is weird, yeah. Always weird to see yourself or watch yourself. We're editing now, and it just, it's so hard to look at yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard. And did you have a question?
Yeah, I was interested in how you get your movie role. Is it somebody in the production reaching out to you because they want you to be in it?
But he's asking about movie roles. You know, movies are so hard because you take so long. You have to sit around for so long. And I'm not that kind of an actress. You know, I think I'm better for TV. So usually it's someone you get in touch or say, oh, we were interested in her doing this. You know, can she do this? But I don't really, I'm horrible at auditioning. You know, I'm really good at if someone says you've got one take to do this, or you've got one chance, then I'm perfect, because that's why I like talk shows when it's live. It's like, or theater, it's like, you know, you can only do it once live, and you know, it's just, you're just on point. And I like that energy. When I know I can do it 10 times, you know, it's different. But that Stranger with Candy, the illiteracy episode, where I'm like, cat, that one, I had one take for that, and that was perfect, right? I got to wreck that room. I love it when I get to wreck a room, and I love breakaway glass. And I used to be friends, you know, with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and whenever I would get a job, I'd go to the props and I'd say, I need 8 breakaway glasses, you know, and it's really expensive, but I would hoard it at my apartment. And then when Phil would come over, I would play this game with Philip because he was so funny and he was such a good actor. I mean, let's pretend we're fighting because my neighbors could see into my apartment. And I said, all you just will just yell at each other, and then you take this plate and you smash it over my head. And it was just so much fun. And he was so good because he was real. I love playing with real actors. They're just so, they're funny, or they can be. Like, we have a lot of real actors this season, like Billy Crudup. He doesn't do TV. I was like, he said yes. And Campbell Scott is on our show this season. And, you know, Michael Shannon came back. I mean, Paul Giamatti. It's like, really, like, you know, Rose Byrne. It's like crazy who we got. But I love working with real pros like that.
Do they want multiple takes, or do you want to get it on the first shot?
I don't know why I'm always like, I don't ever think anyone wants to do it. I'm always like, oh, they don't want to do our show. Like, they don't want to come on. They don't want to be here all day. You know, because sometimes I have that attitude. You say yes, but then you're like, oh, why did I say yes? And I just think everyone thinks like that. But they're always like, well, we never get asked to do stuff like this. So I really think that they're having a really fun, good time. But it's amazing that they're really good at it. Like, Billy Crudup was really funny. He didn't need any direction or try this, try that, and nothing. He just nailed it the first time. Is that it? Are we breaking up?
It's a brush off. We're getting ready to.
This award means a lot to me. It really does. And again, I have to share it with Paul Dinello because he is Ernie Kovacs. But that's really nice.
Well, you've certainly earned it, and I think
Thank
it's
you.
fantastic that you're the first female recipient.
I know, how about that?
It's so wonderful to have you in town, and I really enjoyed it. I think this is like just an amazing night. So
Well, let's talk about this at the airport. Am I going to get stopped? Are they going to be like, he's going to go through a scanner?
There's 3 knives inside.
I really don't think anybody would think there's a bomb in there. I think you're good.
Okay. That's classy. Look at that.
It is.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thanks for coming out in this rainy weather we're having.
You can, Amy Sedaris.